Thank you. Again, my name is Steve Philion. I'm a professor. I profess sociology at St. Cloud State University in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And I'm also the director of a research group called the Research Group on Immigrant Workers in Minnesota. Just to let you know, I might sound a little groggy this morning or under the weather. I didn't bring the Minnesota cold with me, but I did bring a Minnesota cold with me. So bear with me. And I'm very grateful to have been not only nominated by my university president for this award, but also to have been one of the finalists nominated for this award, and to be joining my fellow finalist award winners. Congratulations also, of course, to Andy Furco from the University of Minnesota, who is the winner of this year's award. And he's so two Minnesotans managed to get on the winners list this year. Just to let you know, our background of my the work that I do that brought about this nomination and finalist award. I direct this research group on immigrant workers in Minnesota. It was in response to a call by the university president of St. Cloud State University, Earl Potter, for greater amounts of community engagement and a more organic linkage between St. Cloud State University and the St. Cloud regional area and community partners in the St. Cloud area who are doing work fostering, if you will, economic growth and food sustainability, addressing issues of homelessness and that kind of thing. All of which are great things that the university should be indeed fostering, and there should be developing this closer relationship between the university and the community. I came up with this idea because St. Cloud is home to approximately somewhere between 8 to 15,000 newly arrived Somali immigrants, depending upon who you ask, the number differs. And also the St. Cloud area, central Minnesota, is home to thousands of immigrants from Mexico and Central America. And so I believe very strongly that if we're to take seriously these kinds of calls for community engagement and broadly linked with that diversity in life, then we have to actually address ourselves as academics to these communities and in a way that is practical and relevant to the needs that they have in this moment, and especially in a moment like this, as Amanda was alluding to, in a moment of great economic crisis, not only in this country but around the world. And this research group, initially the idea for it came to my mind when I attended a conference in Omaha, actually an international conference on immigration that occurs biannually. And it was a wonderful conference with brilliant scholars who were very dynamic and very eloquent in discussing a lot of developments in the immigrant rights movement, both in the United States and around the world, and people with whom I felt a real close, not only academic, but frankly political linkage with. But I remember looking around during the conference, just thinking to myself, it's a wonderful conference, and it'd be really great if there were some immigrants there, especially immigrant workers, since this is who they are often talking about when they're talking about the problems of immigrants in the United States and around the world. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could put together a research group at St. Cloud State University that could put on every year a conference that would bring immigrants, especially immigrant workers, onto panels as active participants, and also organizations in St. Cloud and in Minnesota that do work around helping immigrant workers with the issues that they're dealing with, most notably immigrant worker centers and trade unions and various community organizations that are involved in immigrant workers' issues as well. And that's what we've done for the last 3 years. We put together a conference called the Global Goals Local Conference, which is and actually this year was a 4-day conference, which brought in both very well-known academics in the area of immigration, and as well numerous immigrant organizations, trade unions, and immigrant workers themselves on panels talking about the kinds of issues that they're dealing with and the kind of struggles that they're engaged in the moment. And I note the word struggle just very simply because one of the things that I kind of pride myself on what we've done with this research group in terms of how we bring immigrants and organizations that work with immigrants to this conference is that what I want for them to do is to speak not about how they are immigrants and victims, not that they're not. There are plenty of stories that immigrants are able to tell about their victimhood, but also about how they are also actively, as political agents, engaged in collectively making change. And in that way, then, the kind of relationship that they have, ideally, when they're on these panels, with the audience, is one that is, frankly, more equal, and not just one in which they're being observed as mere victims. And that's very powerful, I think, because for many students and faculty, when they're thinking about the issue of immigration, whether we're talking undocumented or documented, very often the central problem for them is that they've never met immigrants. They've never, or if they have, they haven't met immigrant workers. They might know colleagues who are immigrants, but they don't know immigrant workers, the kind of struggles that they're going through, and the way in which they're not mere victims, but they're actually active political agents of social change. And so that, in a nutshell, is what we do in terms of the conference. And then throughout the year, what we're doing is engaging in different research projects that are ideally developed in partnership with organizations, again, most notably immigrant worker centers, trade unions, and community organizations, or NGOs as it were, that are involved in organizing immigrants around one or another type of issue. And in the process, also bringing students into that kind of research. Most notably, one of my then undergraduate and now graduate students was involved as a volunteer at the Lutheran Social Services as an employment volunteer, basically, helping Lutheran Social Services with clients who are coming in looking for work, with doing all the stuff that is very that were new and strange for them, and also kind of scary. Language, English is their first language. Filling out forms, making phone calls, contacting employers, and just trying to help them with the ABCs of dealing with what can be a very scary experience looking for a job as a newly arrived refugee immigrant. In the process of doing this kind of work, she also ended up, because of the work that she was doing with this organization and the trust that she developed with this organization, gaining access to all kinds of data about the kinds of clients that are coming in and their basic demographics. And she has now taken the data and done numerous reports and presentations on it. And the purpose of it has been basically to dispel many of the stereotypes that employers have about Somali refugees as employable employees. And that's been useful not only because it's dispelling these stereotypes in the minds of employers, but quite frankly, it dispels these stereotypes that exist among even very liberal and sympathetic academics. A number of the things that she found were quite surprising to myself, and I did not expect to be surprised by much that she found. And so that's what we've been doing in terms of both our research and our conference, and the ways in which, very briefly, we have tried to engage in a kind of collaboration that responds to the call on the part of our university president for greater and more holistic, as it were, forms of collaboration. I want to respond very briefly, given that experience, to the white paper that Amanda referred to earlier, and perhaps make a suggestion or two that I think would be helpful to how we think about how we do community engagement and how we think about community engagement both as campus compact and as well as educators. I just want to pull out a few quotes from the report. From page 3, the concept of shared value moves beyond social responsibility, philanthropy, or even social sustainability for campuses and enterprises. It recognizes the health of the community hinges on the development of successful partnership. Partnerships are formed with nonprofit organizations, government agencies, schools, and other entities addressing cultural issues locally, regionally, and internationally. On page 12. Eastern Washington University's Institute for Public Policy and Economic Analysis has developed the Community Indicator Project, a shared venture with the local Chamber of Commerce that allows community organizations to access and manipulate economic data collected by the university. It helps individuals, businesses, and nonprofits make informed decisions regarding voting policy, spending, and other civic and economic goals. And then finally, from page 17, concretely what this looks like in one case cited, the engineering program at Purdue University North Central is working with ArcelorMittal, the largest steel company in the world, to support Indiana's long-established steel industry. Because ArcelorMittal employees help the engineering faculty decide what to teach in class, the partnership works. The Steelworkers of the Future program has slowly built capacity in the local steel economy by aligning research with industry goals and preparing students to be productive members of the workforce. As I was reading this white paper, and I went through it several times, what struck me was that there was one institution that was missing throughout the white paper that I think the Campus Compact should really think seriously about more actively incorporating into their ideas about which institutions we should be encouraging these partnerships with, and that would be trade unions. And since I do work, and our research group does work on immigrant workers, I would say also, of course, immigrant worker centers, which have been really some of the most dynamic institutions in terms of helping immigrant workers do what I think is absolutely necessary, historically we know, from the history of past immigrant groups, and that is to organize into either labor unions or through organizations like worker centers that help them organize. Economists such as Paul Krugman, Joseph Stiglitz, among others, have noted that the crisis that we're in is a crisis that is deep even as we come out of this crisis. That the problem of joblessness, and also most notably, not only joblessness, but the kinds of jobs that are being created are ones that are not high-wage jobs, are not ones that come with benefits, and are ones that are rendering even those who are employed now to be known as what they call the precariat, is it the precarious? Proletariat, the precariat. This is something that I think, if we are to take seriously the matter of economic development and our commitment to the community, and especially as a person who's interested in what's happening to newly arrived immigrants as a community and as part of our community in this country, we have to take seriously trade unions, if for no other reason than, one, they played a huge role in contributing to the ability of past immigrant groups to get themselves out of poverty, especially in the 1930s, but also in the 1940s and the 1950s and the 1960s and 1970s, until and not just holding on through the 80s and the 90s. And I think that that is something that if we don't give enough attention to, what will happen is our notions of community engagement will become skewed towards ideas that a steel company might have about economic development or community engagement. And I think that at this time, given the crisis of economic development from the vantage of working class people, in terms of not only is the problem for them developing skills to find work, but also, even if they've developed skills, finding a job that pays a decent wage, which is increasingly, as those of us in academia know, is not only a crisis for janitors, but also even ourselves. And so this is something that I think that I would urge Campus Compact to think seriously about. Because if it doesn't, I fear that it's not going to accomplish its wish to be engaging this question of economic development and community engagement in a holistic fashion. And so those are my hopefully thoughtful suggestions on how we can do this better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.